freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Tour Championship, the final event of the season. But have no fear, the FedEx Cup Fall starts after just 1 week of an offseason. Greg DuCharme is here. Hello, Greg.
Rick, I can't believe this is our last DFS episode of the 2024 season. It's gone by so fast. It's been great. And I look forward to getting into these players, taking a vacation around the world in the off season, and getting right back to it a week later.
I know it's true, but it sounds so dramatic to say this is like the last event of the season. I can't believe it's here. It's all true. It's all true. So I'm not going to take that away from you, Greg, but there will just be one Monday in which we will not be together before we get right back at it.
Yes. But it definitely has a different feel to it, right? There's a different
vibe. Of course.
I'm glad we roll on. I'm glad we get right back to it. I like the FedEx Cup Fall. The real off season is over the holidays.
Yes. That's really when they take a couple weeks off, and then you get those wonky events. But this isn't even really an off season. Well, so we have a lot to get into. So we've got course changes. We've got to talk about the format. And then, of course, there's only 30 players in the field. We'll probably talk about at least half of them. I don't know. We'll see as we go through here. But Josh, if you want to share my screen, I've got the stats up for me, Slate, Greg, and let's just start there because they really kind of tore this thing down to the studs and rebuilt it. So we've got new grasses, we've got new contours, we've got new putting surfaces, we've got a lot more pinnable locations. The par is now a par 71. What is kind of the overall takeaways from this nearly year-long restoration that just happened?
Well, one, it was done by Andrew Green. And if you remember the PGA Championship a couple of years ago at Oak Hill, Andrew Green also redid Oak Hill. So he is kind of a hot up and coming rising star in the architecture business.
He's the man. He's the man in demand right now.
Yes, especially if you have a Donald Ross course and you want to redo it. They looked at a picture from 1929 or something.
I thought it was the 50s, but I'm not very confident on that. It might have been the 20s. It might have been the late 20s.
49. It might have been 49.
Maybe it was 49.
Yeah, but so they want to take it back to some of those kind of features. So a couple things. One, I think the biggest effect that you'll see this year is there's new grasses, right? Every blade of grass, every inch of turf is redone, ripped up and redone. And that means one thing first and foremost, aside from the design features that are changed, it will play firm. All right. New courses are always firm. They are always bouncy. So you're going to see some bouncy greens. There has not been a round of golf played on East Lake since the Tour Championship last year.
Wow.
Which is pretty wild. There were hundreds of trees removed. But I will say, and we've talked to Andrew Green about this. His idea of tree removal is more like, let's get rid of some of the trees that don't come into play, right? He's a believer in strategic trees. And so the idea, what I read about is, he wants to, the trees were kind of repositioned to create more shot shaping. The grass, which in the fairway is Zorro Zoysia, when it's dry, should play a little faster, a little firmer. It's designed to have a little more movement on the ground, which should make for an interesting watch. But I think the biggest aspect when it comes to what we're going to see on the golf course this week is, one, you're going to have firmer conditions. Two, you're going to have putts that are going to break a little bit differently. So that may have an effect on some of the course history. So I'm looking at course history because I still think there's a value to it, but I'm looking at it a little bit less than usual. I also think making it a par 71 instead of a par 70 will affect scores, if not this year, in the future. So But it should affect that for everybody. So not a huge difference there.
14 is the hole that used to play as a par 4 that is now a par 5. That's the way the members had always played it, and the PGA Tour had moved the tees up. They're gonna play that as a 5, so it is a par 71. Greg, I want to mine into the course history bit here, because this would normally be a stop where you get a lot of the same players in a similar identical sized field at the same time of year, and it would be a very sticky course history. Xander, Rory McIlroy, these guys come to mind about always playing well at Eastlake. How much are we knocking off of that, right? How much are we, if we are we not considering it as much? And in turn, does that give somebody like Ludvig a little bit of a boost in your mind because everyone's going to be playing it for the first time effectively this week?
It's a very interesting concept. I would knock off probably in the neighborhood of like, make it a percentage, like 5%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's a huge knockoff for guys who have played well at Eastlake. Now, it's also probably not a huge boost if you've played well at Eastlake. For the new guys like Ludvig, who have never played in the Tour Championship before, I think they've gotten pretty darn good. I mean, almost everywhere Ludvig has played has been a new stop for him.
Yeah, well, he's a sicko. Right? Yeah.
So hey, if you're here and you're a rookie, you're a sicko. You've learned the golf courses in a day or two. Last week, these guys hadn't seen Castle Pines. I mean, Adam Scott had, but it was redone since he had seen it. Keegan hadn't played there in competition. So I think I think course history in general can give you an idea of if it's a good golf course for him, but recent form and some more specific metrics are very likely more important than course history anyway. So that might be added like 5%.
Okay. That's fair. And I appreciate you going on the record and quantifying that for me. That was very helpful.
Yeah. Are you in a similar place?
I assumed it was going to be more than that. I was surprised to hear you say 5%. I was thinking, I was thinking like 20%.
Okay, so we got a pretty big difference there. And
now maybe
20% because of the greens, the breaks in the greens.
I do. And just, it's I think it's going to look a lot different. I think that, like you said, I 100% agree that it's going to be, quite firm. And I just think that it might be a little bit, I don't want to say jarring is like an exaggeration, but whatever 10% of jarring is, right? Just be like maybe just a little uncomfortable for guys that have racked up a lot of rounds and have had a lot of success there. We've kind of seen what doubt does to these guys or what indecision can do to these guys. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle, Greg. Maybe it's 10%, right? You know what I mean? It's got the same bones. Maybe I shouldn't care that much, but I thought you were going to say a higher number than that.
Yeah. Part of it probably is, I just think the course history is a little overrated in general.
Okay.
There are, and Eastlake may be one of them where like Xander's going to play well, but we also have this situation where Xander kind of comes in playing well. Like Xander's always playing well. Rory always has the capability of playing well. So how much of their success at Eastlake is because of Eastlake? And that's something I'm not sure of. I don't think it's such a unique golf course where some guys can figure it out and some guys can't. Right. You just don't see the shots. I think there's a straightforward element to it in general that it just simply allows for the best players to play well. It asks questions that if you're good on the PGA Tour all year, Eastlake's probably going to be a good spot for you.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of my reason.
I think it's very fair. And I want to start getting into this field, and I want to talk about a little bit about the format. We've talked about it ad nauseum, but just from a fantasy perspective. But we're going to jump into that after a quick word from our partners.
Yeah, they're wrapping up the summer. And now we're looking forward to kicking it with superstars. Now that's CBS Sports Sunday. We'll see you on September 8th.
And we're back. Okay, Greg, this is my website, rickrungood.com. This is the cheat sheet. And the thing that we have to remember here is, and we've been talking about it for weeks on end, this is a staggered start. So there are going to be players starting in different areas on the leaderboard. Scotty Scheffler starts at 10 under, Xander Schauffele starts at 8 under, all the way down to the 5 guys that start at even par. Now, we've talked about this for the last 5 years. The finishing position points that a golfer gets will be in their score sheet, right? When Scotty Scheffler tees off on Thursday, he's going to get those first place points. Now, as players jockey and move up and move down, those points are going to change, but it is something to consider. It's almost like, Greg, they've played one round already, right? And now, nobody's getting any points for birdies or bogeys or eagles or anything like that. They've played one round, they've got positions, and now we go from here.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. I think it's a really important way to look at it. And it's easy to get tied up and caught up in, in the 7K range, I got guys at 3 under and guys at 1 under. So take the 3 under guys. Well, you may take the 3 under guys, but it's not because of the shot or two that they have.
Right.
I did a little looking at what the top 5 of this tournament has looked like over the last 5 years. Where did these guys start? And it's pretty interesting. I mean, the guy in first every year except one last year, Scotty Scheffler, has finished in the top 5. They've won twice of the 3 years. 8 under has 1 win. Only twice in the 5 years has the player entering at 8 under finished in the top 5.
Wow.
Find that to be pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a guarantee. At 7 under, there have been 3 top 5s, no wins. At 6 under, 2 top 5s, no wins. At 5 under, only 1 top 5, and that was a win. That was Rory the first year.
Yeah, that was Rory.
No other guy who started at 5 under has gotten into the top 5. Now, when you get to the 4 unders and below, there's 5 players that start at that. So, the number will sound different. The percentage is pretty similar. At 4 under, 6 players have gotten into the top 5. 1 has won. That's Rory. That's 24%. That's actually more. There's a higher top 5 percentage of 4 unders than 5 unders.
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you, Greg, for a second, because do you think that is because of the nature of the style of golf that these guys are playing? So when you start at 4 under or 5 under or whatever that might be, and you already know you've got to make up 6 shots, and you've got 5 guys that are trying to fly up the board, do you think that the nature of that is there's kind of only one direction to go up the board? Like I gotta know, you know what I'm trying to get into here?
Yes. Look, what's the style? What's the mindset?
Yeah.
So I think there's a few things. One, who is it? Right? Is the guy that's in 5th, did they work their way up to 5th? Are they trending in the right direction? Were they near the top all year and kind of slowed down in the playoffs? I think that's a factor. You've also only have 5 players start at 5 under, where you've had 25 players start at 4 under.
Right.
And it's only 1 shot over 4 rounds, So I that's why I think those percentages are close. And over time, they probably get even closer. As far as style is concerned, that's a really interesting question, because I don't think there's a huge difference between being 6 back and being 5 back mentally. You start at 5 back, you still feel like you got to get after it. It's time to go. I'm 5 back. And the only place where you probably get out of that is if you're at 8 under or 10 under. Hey, I'm 2 back. I got 1 guy to beat. I can just go play. I'm leading, but I got 4 rounds. I got to go play. So I do. I think the point that I'm trying to make here, Rick, is starting strokes is a little bit overrated when you're looking at this from a player selection standpoint. I do think there's a very real possibility that that 3 unders and 2 unders can make it into the top 5. Now, no one from 1 under or even has ever made it into the top 5.
Wow.
So that is that going to last forever? Probably not. It's possible, but it's never happened. Where you've had 5 players from 2 under make it into the top 5. So these guys, the big thing here is there's somebody down at the bottom of the board who can work their way up. They can go shoot 14 under for 4 rounds, finish at 16, and they're going to be pretty well up there on the leaderboard.
Yeah, I remember the key to these events is finding that big mover or two. I think like it's been like Ches Reavie or Sung J Im or like, you know what I mean? Like these guys
Kevin
Mackenzie Hughes, I think was one year. Just like the guy that starts in 21st that might finish 5th, something like that, racks up so many fantasy points and enough finishing position points that they end up being a key to a lot of these lineups.
And if no, this is important to mention too, like Ches Reavie, Mackenzie Hughes, those guys didn't get to the top 5, but it doesn't mean they're not valuable fantasy assets. So
do you have the guys that made the top 5 in front of you?
Yes.
Who were those guys from like 2 under?
The guys from 2 under, Max Homa in 2022.
Wow.
So he shot 15 under gross. There's just no other way to say that. Mm-hmm. Kevin Na in 2021 and Xander in 2021.
I remember those. I did not remember Max Homa.
Scotty in 2020 shot 12 under for 14 under. He finished 5th. And Paul Casey in 2019, he only shot 7 on. He shot 7 under for 4 rounds. Finished at 9 under. It got in the top 10.
Is that the year that he flew the green on 18 with his second 3-iron in his bag?
That sounds right, because I don't think he was a factor in any of the other renditions.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do. I do. You got to be right on it. So at 9, he finished 9 back, but still got in the top 5.
Wow.
So look, this is the overarching point. The way you approach this is the same way you would approach it if there were no starting strokes. If you select guys that go make a bunch of birdies and eagles, they are going to finish where they finish. And that 1 or 2 starting strokes, like it'll be reflected in the pricing. You don't have to worry about starting strokes. You pick the guys that you think are going to play the best, and you'll be fine. That's my advice.
That was very helpful, Greg. Thank you very much. I'm glad we went down that path. And let's start naming some names. Let's start figuring this thing out. The 3 golfers in the 10K range are Scotty Scheffler, $12,200, Xander Schauffele, $11,000, and Hideki Matsuyama at 10-1. I think that there is one guy out of those 3 that is going to garner a lot of the clicks, and I'm assuming it's going to be Xander Schauffele this week, Greg. How do we want to start sorting out these 3?
Well, it's a tough one because Hideki withdrew last week after the BMW. So is Hideki going to get any, like, what kind of person do you have to be to pick Hideki up here?
So this is so
Maybe
sick.
A smart one.
It's so sick because Hideki's been awesome, right? Even the WD, remember he was in 2nd and he gained 5 strokes to the field in round 1. Who knows in an alternate
2-footer to tie the lead on 18.
Yeah. In an alternate timeline where the storm holds off for 15 more minutes, Hideki might have won last week, right? Like it just very different things. Now the problem is going to be, I don't think we're going to get any clarity. 1, because I don't know if anybody's going to talk to Hideki. And 2, I don't know if he's going to say anything or if they're going to have to go through Bob, his translator, or what. Like, I don't think we're going to get any clarity over how serious the back injury was, or if it was more precautionary. So I think it's only going to be the real sickos who are willing to forego Xander and Scotty for a high risk, incredibly high reward Hideki Matsuyama.
He could legitimately win this thing.
He's been awesome here, hasn't he?
He's been good here.
He's been good. I wouldn't say awesome.
Yeah, he's been good. Good enough. I mean, he a couple times when it was not starting strokes, he's got, tied 4th in 2018. He was 5th in 2016. A couple other nice finishes there. With starting strokes, he hasn't really made any real noise. But I wouldn't say that it's been bad where don't play Hideki at Eastlake. That is not what we're looking at here. So I think he's an option, which means all three are an option, which makes this really difficult. Xander, like you said, Rick, is the clear-cut favorite. He's the only guy that, he has just a phenomenal record. You could split hairs between he and Rory on who has the best record at Eastlake, but Xander's finished in the top 5 every year since starting strokes started, and he's never started better than 6 under. That's kind of a scary thing. So there's a very legitimate reason to feel like Xander Schauffele is going to win this tournament.
I'm pretty sure he has at least 2, and I could be wrong on this, at least 2 like gross wins. The one in 17, and then he had another one, I think in 19.
So I have it right here. He did win when it was not starting strokes as a rookie in
2017. Yeah.
Yeah. So that very good golf course learner. He was low gross in 2020.
Okay.
DJ won. DJ beat him by 3 shots with the starting strokes. And last year, he and Victor both shot 19 under without starting strokes.
Right. So he won this straight up no strokes in 2017, and he has had 3 strokes gains performances better than that since then.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. And he's having his best year ever.
Yikes.
And last week felt like kind of a down week, and he finished T5. So it's hard to get away from Xander. And here's what I'm thinking, Rick. I think it could be a really good thing because it keeps people away from Scotty.
Oh,
right. Scotty had a little meltdown last week. Things did not look good. People might be worried that he's injured his back. He's frustrated. He doesn't want to be here. Whatever narrative you want to paint up, I think a lot of people will paint these up. But my thinking is Scotty is showing those emotions because he's extremely competitive. I don't think he lost his game last week. And he comes to Eastlake for the 3rd year in a row at 10 under and has not won a tour championship yet. So, it could be a really good opportunity to play Scotty like you do every week and kind of get an edge. It's kind of where I'm leaning.
He is, so we haven't really talked about this. The pricing for this year is very normal compared to other events and very different. Like, remember, they used to throw these guys out here at $15,500 and $14,000. Scotty's $100 cheaper this week in a field that has 20 fewer guys in it, in a field where he is starting in first place.
Yeah.
Like, what am I missing something here?
Well, pricing's just arbitrary.
Yes, of course
right.
It is. Yeah.
So you throw in starting strokes, arbitrary pricing.
Par is arbitrary.
Arbitrary.
Yardage is arbitrary. None of this even matters, Greg.
It's all arbitrary.
What are we doing here?
No, but there's something to that. I think the price gap between Scotty and Xander is indicative of Xander closing that gap, partly because of his play, partly because of Scotty's. But I just look at Scotty's. I think it's not it's not very concerning to me. It's risky, but I'm looking at those risks as very overcomable. That new word for you.
I love it. Overcomable. Okay. Well, yeah. I generally agree. The 9K range, 4 golfers here. Ludvig making his debut, 9,900. Rory McIlroy not making his debut, 96. Patrick Cantlay, 94. And Colin Morikawa at $9,100. Rory's playoffs haven't been very good. Ludvig's coming off the runner-up finish. Cantlay's been okay. And Colin's been whatever.
Yeah. Colin, I'm not sure what to make of Colin. I'm not thrilled about his ball striking the last couple weeks. He has had a resume that's kind of weak in the playoffs. I'm probably sitting out on Colin in this one. And the real reason for that is I still have the lingering feeling that Cantlay is going to get it together. And we're going to see a special week from him.
Well, if he doesn't do it now, he's got one last crack at it.
So, yeah. But his play has been good. Like, you used the word okay. I think that's right where it is. But there's nothing signaling this is going to go bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's been better than I made it out to be, right? I mean, he's got 5 consecutive top 25s. 4 of them are top 13s. He's gained strokes tee to green in all of them, and he's basically gained throughout the bag in all of them, which is what he did again at the BMW Championship last week, and that included a weekend that wasn't very good. So I definitely see the path to, the fuse has been lit on Patrick Cantlay, and this rocket ship is about to take off.
So that's what I'm looking at, just like you with those numbers. So he becomes a very playable option in the 9K range. And at the same time, I thought Rory last week, T11 finish, it was kind of underwhelming. But as I watched Rory, I was thinking this guy's Rory again, right? This is not what we saw in Memphis, which is atrocious, which is lost. Where is this golf swing? This guy is back to Rory, and that could be a really good sign headed to a place that he absolutely loves. He's starting at 4 under again. There's one here at 4 under. There's one at 5 under. Rory's a strong candidate. And if you're going to mix it up and avoid Xander in the 10K range, not saying that's the right play, but if you're going to do that, you can kind of get some of that Xander Schauffele course history by adding a Rory McIlroy into your lineup.
Yeah, I think that it was a better bounce back than he probably got credit for. We've known that Rory does not have 2 bad weeks in a row, and again he did not. But there was what people will remember are the moments of frustration. The snap in the driver, which was like 100% intentional, throwing the 3-wood into the water, and then having to go with his tail between his legs and retrieve it, which is not a great look either. But the T11 with positive strokes throughout the bag, like I'm with you here. This could set up for just another Rory dismantling of Eastlake.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm curious. I know that Rory's excited about it, which perhaps, like we've talked about on this podcast, Kyle has brought this up many times. Some of these top players aren't really all that into it. I always feel like Rory is very into it. Brad Faxo was saying on the broadcast, he's been watching the YouTube videos, looking at the pictures of the course, and he's really excited to see what they've done and get back there. And that could be just a good mindset for Rory to get into.
I might just start Hideki, Rory, and just burn this whole thing. Like, just let's burn it to the ground.
I don't hate it, because that's you're taking a little risk. You're taking a little risk with Hideki and his injury. I don't think you're taking a risk at all playing Rory at 9,600. Rory McIlroy at Eastlake is 9,600. It's just arbitrary.
What's not arbitrary is this commercial break in which we are going to hit and then continue this conversation.
Saturday is big time on CBS. Number 2 Ohio State welcomes Akron into the Horseshoe. Then more college football in prime time with UCLA taking on Hawaii. Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
And we're back. There are, again, only 4 golfers, Greg, in the 8K range. It's only a field of 30. So Keegan is at 8,700, fresh off his victory. Sam Burns, 85. Victor Hovland, 83. Wyndham Clark, $8,100. Find me some movers and shakers.
I'm fascinated with Sam Burns. Absolutely fascinated. The upside, the birdie making, the potential, the putting is just off the charts. And I've been really impressed with him, where much of the year was kind of on Sam Burns. He has turned me. Because I'm starting to see some serious, I'm starting to see a guy that's starting to get really confident. And I think that's a good thing for Sam Burns. So he's starting at 4 under. I love the 4 under guys this week. They all look great.
They are Wyndham Clark, Sam Burns, Rory McIlroy, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay.
Yeah, except Colin Morikawa. So Wyndham Clark's the other 8K guy that I really like.
Yeah, I think these are and I think everybody's going to want a piece of Burns, and rightfully so. Wyndham Clark has a lot of the same attributes. After dumping 4 into the water on Thursday, he was like a positive approach player the rest of the week. Maybe a 0. And he has shown, dating back to the Travelers, just how scorching hot he can get. So yeah, those were the two. Those were the two that I said, okay, Burns and Wyndham, I think, are the plays here. There were some positive signs for Victor. Again, he struck it beautifully, picked up like another 5 strokes on approach. He's putted better on these surfaces, although I guess they're going to be new surfaces. So there's still a little bit of concern there for Victor, but Burns and Wyndham were the two that I thought were the big boys.
Yeah. And Wyndham finished tied 13th with the mistakes you mentioned on Thursday, which were all over the place, and a careless double bogey on 17 on Sunday.
Yeah.
So again, just like Sam Burns, high upside. Wyndham also came in 3rd last year in the Tour Championship. I don't think he's afraid to go make a move. So I'm all in on him. One note on Keegan Bradley as well. Keegan Bradley hasn't had back-to-back top 10s since 2022.
He only has 3 this year, Greg. The whole year.
Yes. I love when Keegan gets in contention. He's hard to beat, as you saw last week, but he doesn't do it often enough for me to follow up this win with another play.
Yeah, just wait until Saturday, and if he's in the mix, live bet him.
Doesn't need to be in your lineup this week.
I don't think he does either. I tweeted this out. You'll like this. He has 3 top 10s this year, but they're all runner up or better. So you and I talk about that 20-80 rule a lot, making 80. So Keegan this year has made 75% of his money in 14% of his starts. He's made 5.1 million in 3 starts, and then in his other 18 starts, he's made 1.7 million.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And he's in the Tour Championship at 6 under. He's in 4th in the FedEx Cup.
Yeah, with a chance to win it.
Amazing. I hope he does. If he does, I won't have him on my team, unfortunately.
Yeah, I probably won't benefit from it, but there is a chance that he wins this. Now we're in the 7K range, Greg, and this is where we're starting to find these guys that might be able to break through. So this is Adam Scott, Tony Finau, Tommy Fleetwood. Sung J M is right in the middle at $7,500. Then it's Russell Henley, Shane Lowry, Ben On, Billy Ho, and Sahith. That's 9 golfers in this range. Which ones are we buying stock on?
Yeah, it's a fascinating range because, like we were talking about earlier with starting strokes, if there's a line that you really need to pay attention to, this may be it, because you have a mix of players who historically can't win And there's a couple players who are close enough where they theoretically could. I do think a 3-under could win the Tour Championship at some point in the future. And there happens to be a couple guys that start at 3-under par who I also think have the firepower to make a move like that. And that would be Tony Finau and Sungjae Im.
Yes.
So now you're kind of in a little bit of a different realm. Now, Tommy Fleetwood is right in between them. He's at 1-under. I think he's a great play, but slightly less chance of victory. And so for that reason, like Tony Finau, we've talked about it so much this year. He's been really hot all year. The putting has gotten a whole lot better unless you're in Memphis, which is a complete disaster. He putted better last week, finished top 5. I think it could be a great spot for Finau to cap off what I think has been really a better year than his position.
You know what would be so vintage is if Tommy won the gross title. Now, I guess that would count as an OWGR win.
It would.
But it would not count as a PGA Tour win.
No. And it could happen. I mean, I was looking, he looks so good. And he was so solid last week, right? He hit great shots and he made great putts, and it's just not enough.
Tommy, he did do enough for me though. I was in the championship of my season-long fantasy, and I needed Tommy to at least match Xander, and he beat Xander by a stroke, and it won it for me because I had Rory in the 2 playoff weeks. This last week and the week before has given me nothing. Tommy anchors me, baby. Tommy lad.
So you won the season long.
I won the season long.
Season long fan. How was it doing a season long?
I love it. Yeah, I mean, so this is like the group of guys that I know. We've done it for the last couple of years. We've drafted in Vegas before, then we drafted online. So it's like, it's guys, I mean, it's like also people from the industry, like Golf Digest and yeah. So, but no, it's a lot of fun. And we expanded the rosters this year and we actually lowered the number of starters because of it's basically 2 separate,
you need 2 teams.
Yeah. It's like 2 separate tours, right? You've got to have Davis Thompson and Akshay, but you also got to have Tommy Fleetwood and Rory McIlroy, right? So I think that was a very helpful change because otherwise you were just constantly on the waiver wire having to drop like your entire team for the 3M,
right? Which you don't want to do.
Nobody
That's a cool thing. I hope we can make that more popular.
Yeah, so it was really fun, and Tommy gave me a sweat, but we came through, baby. Let's go.
Huge.
Yes.
Huge.
Okay. Just to put a bow on that, Sungjae was the guy for me here, right? He's played well at East Lake. The putter's starting to heat up. We've talked about this at this point in the year, we've talked about all of these guys so much. There's not a ton of surprises here. If you're down in the bottom of this range, Lowry, Ben-An, Horschel, Sahith. If you can only play one of them, is there one that you're more comfortable than another?
Horschel's just been striping it. He's gained 2.5 or more on approach the last 4 weeks. He's gained on approach the last 5 weeks. He's really got something going on with his ball striking, and he's totally a gamer. So I love what I'm seeing out of Billy Horschel. Russell Henley could make a move too. He's kind of an interesting guy. I just feel a little less. I feel like he may be headed the wrong way. And I think Billy Horschel's headed towards like another peak, which is crazy after finishing runner up at the tied second at the Open.
Yeah, he's been really, really good. It's been an awesome year for Billy. Happy to see it. I hope it ends in a President's Cup. The 6K range. There's 10 of them. Akshay, Justin Thomas, Sepp Straka, Robert McIntyre, and then Taylor Pendrith. That's the top. The bottom dwellers. Aaron Rai, Christian Bezuidenhout, Chris Kirk, Tom Hoagie, and Matthew Pavone. All of those guys, except for Pavone, are starting at even. Pavone is going to start at 1 under. par. So that's the 6K range, Greg.
Right. The guys at the bottom. We got some 1-unders up top.
Correct. Yes.
Sepp Straka is one of the 1-unders who I'm interested in. He's played well at Eastlake.
He has.
And he's got a tied 14th in last year. Again, that's with starting strokes. He gained 4 strokes total.
Yep. And he gained 3.5 the year before that. So he's been a stroke per round golfer at Eastlake,
which I think is a really good sign. And looking at his form, the finishes haven't been there, but I think a lot of the other metrics have. He's kind of had one thing bite him, whether it be putting or short game. He's got a lot of really positive metrics. So it would not surprise me if Sepp Straka went out and, made a run up the board. I love him. Taylor Pendrith, we've spent a ton of time on. Why turn back now?
He'll be the most popular guy here, and it's entirely well-deserved.
Yes. So, I would still do it. Hopefully you've been different. You've gone with like Hideki and Rory, like you talked about, differentiate a little bit up top. But I think it's a great option. I got one more, and then we got to have a conversation. So I think down at 6,100, Tom Hoge is kind of a fascinating play. There's just always that really high upside potential with his iron play. And you talk about a situation starting at even par, you got to go make a bunch of birdies. Tom Hoge has that capability. Gained over 8 strokes on approach last week. The putter's been an issue. Okay, but we're talking 6,100 here.
It's very kind to call it an issue.
Yeah, it's been bad. It's been very bad.
So I agree with you from the sense of, Pendrith is like the popular guy that I'd be happy to play because you can differentiate in other places. And another thing that we've talked about a lot is some of these guys are limping home. So I'm not afraid, just because of the nature of this, how these guys have qualified. I'm not afraid to go to Taylor Pendrith. Who's the guy we have to have a conversation about?
Well, it's Justin Thomas.
Oof.
Because we don't have Justin Thomas talks in the $6,000 range ever. And he's in the $6,000 range. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he's the last man in. He's starting at even par. So that has that plays a big role in where he starts. But in the years that Justin Thomas has been at Eastlake, he's been pretty good. On his own ball, he shot 3 under, 11 under, 11 under, 14 under. In fact, when he shot 14 under, he started at 3 under and got into the top 5 in 2022. So he's played well. He has played well at Eastlake.
He's never gained fewer than 3 strokes here. I mean, he's been seven trips, and he's been
done great.
He's been great.
So now that begs the question. Last year he didn't make it to Eastlake, so that's out. So is Justin Thomas performing well here because he's just a good player and playing well and in the Tour Championship and plays well again? Very real possibility. Is it something that he likes about the golf course?
Do you watch?
It's a tough call.
Do you watch cartoons with your boys on like Saturday mornings?
I never let them watch cartoons.
Really? They don't watch cartoons?
No, they do. I'm just.
Okay. I was like, I don't know, maybe. I was like, do they still have cartoons?
Yeah. We watch them sometimes.
I am that wily coyote who just steps on the rake and smacks myself in the face over and over again. I never learn with Justin Thomas. And that is my cartoon character. I'm in the Justin Thomas comic strip and I step on the rake and it smacks me in the face every single time. I don't know, man. I mean, I see plenty of breadcrumbs. I see some good enough high-end ball striking weeks to be excited. Every time I physically lay eyes on a Justin Thomas shot, I hate watching it. Like, he cannot putt. You have pointed this out to me, and once you did, I notice it every single time. He misses every putt to the right, every single one. It is painful to watch.
It's amazing. The putted thing is amazing when you start watching it. Because
Every time.
From 4 feet or 74 feet, it's going to be right.
Every single time. And even these weeks where he's had very high-end Justin Thomas approach weeks, he hasn't really gotten a lot out of them. You know, you pick up 5 strokes on approach. Great. Finish T33 at the Memorial. Pick up another, 3.2 in Memphis, like 30th in a 70-man field. It's just, we've never, if it's not one thing, it's the other. And I'm just kind of at the end here. I don't know what to do.
Okay. Because I don't know either. I wrote his name down with a big question mark. Because it's just shocking to see his name there.
If I somehow created some lineup that had $6,800 left, I honestly just might play Sepp Straka or Taylor Pendrith.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Like I want to say that I would be like, if you made me choose yes on Justin Thomas or not, I would probably say yes. But in reality, if I had $6,800 left, I would not spend it on it.
Okay. So that means that it's a no.
So it's a no.
A no on Justin Thomas. I can totally see where you're coming from. There's big mistakes lurking with him.
Yeah.
And that hurts.
Plus, I've got to deduct 5% for the new golf course.
Yeah. Deduct 5% from all that great course history. Which is almost, the more I think about it now, it's like irrelevant. Because he was playing great then.
He was like one of the best players in the world.
Yeah. Oh, he played great at Eastlake. That's what the good players do.
Yeah, it is kind of, yeah. How do you decide between a guy who really plays well at Eastlake or a great player who has earned his way to Eastlake?
Yeah, that's the challenge. Because there's something really good going on when you make it this far. That's why they talk about making it to Eastlake as being such an important goal. But when you're not playing well and make it to Eastlake, what does that say? And now you're comparing yourself to guys that everybody here made it to Eastlake. So how do you compare against them? In the past, Justin Thomas has compared very well against them, but he hadn't gone through a slump. He was Justin Thomas. So it's a difficult one for me to figure out. And I'm starting to, after hearing you talk about it, Rick, I'm starting to think it's just a shiny lure that has a hook on the end of it. And it looks great. You want to bite it.
You don't want to bite it.
But you don't want to.
Hopefully they'll catch and release you, Greg. They won't fry you up and eat you for dinner.
All right, we'll go Sepp Straka instead. That's much safer.
All right. Well, this week will be basically a normal week. Tuesday, mega preview pod. Round by round recaps plus one network show this week. That is on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. There is not, I repeat, not a Wednesday network show this week. So just the one network show plus the 6 other pods. That equals 7. And that is the plan.
Phenomenal math.
Thank you. It was tough, but I did it live on the air. Big thanks to producer Josh, who does all the hard work behind the scenes. And on a Monday, in fact, Greg DuCharme is available at The Real GFD. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.